Hey guys, welcome to Stations 101. The reason I'm making this video, I've made other videos in the past that touch on the same subjects, but the reason I'm making this specific video is because I wanted to kind of bring everything in to one video so everybody can get a basic idea for how stations work, how tactics work around stations. Just the basics, nothing advanced. So we're going to talk about a couple things like docking radius, cynoing on a station, tacticals of a station, and instant undocks. So very basic station 101. So let's even like add that right up here. I didn't want to do that at all. There. Stations 101. It's obviously got to be huge, right? Well, if I select it, probably will be. There. All right. So each one of these stars is a tactical. A tactical is a bookmark in space, a safe spot. But a tactical is not a safe spot. A safe spot somewhere off grid in the middle of nowhere, ideally, where it's hard for people to find you, even a little difficult for people to probe you because it's not near common objects, ideally, for a good safe spot. So it's a little bit hard to even know to start probing in the first place. For a station, these are tactical. So tactical is different from a safe spot because it's on the same grid. It's if you undock from the station, you will see a ship sitting here and you will see a ship sitting here. This is above the station. This is in front of the station, in front of the undock. Those two lines right there, the undock, the orange circle is the docking radius. So now we understand my awesome graphic here. So from here, we're going to look at the different things about a station that you need to know. So first of all, if you're going to be spending any time in an area, like you live in that area or you have enemies that live in that area, then you need to do some prep work. That prep work consists of making two basic tacticals that are just mandatory tacticals. You can do more than this. When you actually target, when my alliance actually targets another enemy, we will often have a whole range of tacticals at different ranges above the station, in front of the station, behind the station, below the station. Oftentimes we'll have what I call a grid of tactical busting safe spots of tacticals where no matter where someone is, we can select something near them to warp to and get right on top of them. That, however, is a whole other subject, and if you're interested in that, I made a video about that when it first became possible called tactical busting. So in this video, we're talking about tacticals. This one's your above station. So if I was like coming in from a gate and I wanted to see what was on station that was cloaked or even uncloaked, and I wanted to just warp safely to the station and not risk getting caught in a bubble. If someone had a bubble on the station or in front of the station, like so let's say that we had a gate over here and the warp line would be like that, and someone put a bubble right there, a small bubble or large, whatever, or saber, and they're catching everything that comes from gate directly to station. So I can circumvent that by just going straight to my tactical above the station first, and then down to the station to dock should I want to dock. So that's why you have that tactical, so you can get eyes on the station, you can see where the enemy are positioned. It's not just like getting a directional scan and seeing what's there. You want to know the positioning of everything, where each individual ship is, and potentially that's going to give you an opportunity for a kill, or potentially that's going to change the tactics of your fleet, whatever. So that's the reason for that tactical. Now let's suppose that you're docked in the station and the enemy has a bunch of ships sitting here on the undock. So right here they've got a little camp, no bubble, but just like some frigates and maybe some tactical destroyers and stuff waiting for you to undock so that they can shoot you and kill you, or at least force you to stay in the station and irritate you and keep you from playing the game that night. So one way around that is to have an instant undock that you've made ahead of time. The way you make an instant undock, I've got a video on that if you want to search the site. It's pretty old, but it's the same as it's always been. The way you make it is you undock when it's safe, when no one's around, ideally in an interceptor, and you don't touch anything. Don't change your velocity, don't change your direction. All you do is hit your micro warp drive, in a straight line. It's not quite straight, but it'll do. In a straight line until you're 200-300 or even more away from the station. And once you're at that spot, you go ahead and save that location as a tactical and name it your Instant Undocks or Instant Undocks. And so what you would do is you would undock, and because when you undock from a station, you have an invulnerability timer. Nothing can lock you or shoot you or do anything to you until you touch one of your modules or you try to warp or something like that. Since you come out of the station pre-aligned at speed, you insta-warp. It's virtually impossible for them to catch you without a bubble if you have your Instant Undocks set up properly. Therefore, it's almost impossible for anyone to camp you in station without a bubble. So that's one really, really valuable trick to have in your toolbox. So that's why we have the Instant Undock there. Next, let's talk about Cynoing. So here, let's look at this orange circle for a minute. So a lot of people have asked me recently, and I'm actually going to get rid of that circle. A lot of people recently have asked me about docking radius and about, more specifically, about what are kickout stations. So in the game, there are stations called kickout stations, and they are usually Minmatar stations. There may be others. And the reason they're called kickout stations is because they undock you at the edge of or outside of the docking radius. Now, if this circle here, let's make it orange. If this circle here is the docking radius of a normal station, right, and you undocked, you would undock right here. You're still within the docking radius, so should something happen, say you're bubbled, someone shoot at you, you're in a carrier about to make a jump, you can just hit dock. No problem, right? It's easy, it's no problem, everything's cool, right? But if you're on a kickout station, that docking radius is much smaller. In some cases, it's something like that. So you undock right there at the edge, but by the time you hit control space and stop your ship, you're out here. And you're maybe 1K, 2K from the docking radius. You can't dock. You have to reapproach before you can dock. And so if there's a, let's say, a Vindicator or a Vigilant or one of those really high bonus web ships with really strong webs that can stop you from getting back to the station, plus maybe a bumping ship. They've got a bumping ship there. If you've looked my recent Drake video I released, you'll see somebody doing this to me. But get heavy webs on the target, bump them, and keep them out here outside the docking radius. Nothing they can do. They die. Everyone who undocks from that station dies. It's basically a death station at that point. There's very, very little you can do to escape that station if it's someone's trying to kill you on the undock. So those are called kickout stations, and for a reason, people avoid them. For that reason, people tend to avoid them. They don't put offices in them. They try not to dock up there when other people are in system. It's just a dangerous place to be. So that's what a kickout station is. Let me, before we finish here, let me show you how to do a proper Cyno. Now, I know my graphics here aren't fantastic, but I think you can get the idea. So here is our normal station docking radius. Some stations have just ridiculous docking radiuses that it's almost impossible to make a mistake on, while others, just about most of them, would have something more like that there's a little bit of give, a little bit of room for you to play around in, but not a huge amount. And usually the most room is on the top and on the bottom of the station, where you have the most free space that's within the docking radius. Now, I don't know if it's actually a docking bubble, like circle or sphere. Probably is, but that's the best way to think of it. And that's how I think of it. So if you were in a Cyno ship, and that's not a good one. If you were in a Cyno ship, you would want to be under the station, well within the docking radius. You want to, basically you want to create a tactical for the station that's just for Cynoing. Because what happens a lot of times is people will Cyno like right over here, or more specifically, That's not very good. Like right there on the edge. And what happens is there's about a 5-kilometer random range that the carrier or the dread or the jump freighter can come in at. And so I've seen this with jump freighters, actually, people that I've known, and they've cynoed and they've just got a bad luck drop of the jump freighter, and the jump freighter lands outside the docking radius. So as a result, he can't dock. He's slow as can be. He can't get to warp. If anybody's around and sees that, that jump freighter's dead. And in that story, the jump freighter actually died. So what you want to do is you want to have your Cyno spot within this radius. But at the same time, you don't want it up against the station. Because if it's against the station, you risk what's called a bump. So what happens then is if you Cyno in and your capital lands on the station side, it kind of lands inside the station, but you know, Eve physics says that's not possible. So it bounces the carrier or the dread or whatever capital it is. And as a result, that capital goes flying off, flying like way out there. And it goes, I've seen them move at ridiculous speeds. Hundreds of meters a second. I think they can even get into thousands of meters a second. Just stupid speeds away from the station so that when it's all over, you're sitting out here way off the station in a capital that takes like 30 seconds to get to warp that could probably never make this reapproach. As you know, I lost a carrier to something very similar to this recently because I was trying to save a guy that was way off the station. But to reapproach takes forever. To warp off takes forever. And if you're pointed, you can't warp off. So it puts you in a really, really bad situation. I'm not sure if that's what happened to him, why he got so far off the station. I assume that's what it is, but I never found out. But anyway, so you want your Cyno spot to be roughly within the docking radius and about 5 kilometers from any solid objects of the station so that you have a good safety margin right there. And it's got to be about 5 kilometers, you know, in your head, because you're not going to be able to see that in the distance to the station. The distance to the station is going to show as 0 from the middle to the edge. So all of that distance in between is going to be 0. It's only once you get past the edge that you're actually going to see that counter go up. So you're going to have to use another reference point, or you're just going to have to do it by time and speed and kind of get a good idea. Once you get the hang of it, though, it's really easy. The best places to do it, top of the station, or the bottom of the station, either one, whichever is the most open. Usually you're going to get a good drop on it and it's going to work well. The most important thing is to make sure that your distance to the station reads 0, and a lot of times I will actually go a little bit further and watch it go up to like 3 or something like that, and then come back and then wait maybe 10 seconds after I get to 0 so that I'm at, say, -2 or something like that, or 3 or 4 or 5 from the edge. So that's basically how you do a Cyno spot. That's how you do your tacticals on the station, your Instant Undocks, and that's what a kick-out station is. That's Stations 101. I can't think of anything else to add to that, but if there's something I didn't cover that you want me to cover, go ahead and leave a comment, let me know, and I might make a Stations 102 video. But hopefully that answers a lot of questions and improves your station PvP skills.